nightmare.
Hello and welcome to Cinema Subculture Batman Special Part 3. Where we're discussing Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
Okay, so Batman Begins, 2005. 8 years after the last travesty of a Batman film. So do you want to give us like a bit of a plot outline, Gary? Surely you must be expecting this by now.
I hadn't thought about it for these, right enough. So Batman Begins does what it says in the title, basically. It's the origin story of Batman. In depth, the most in depth one we've seen on film, I think. Yeah.
So did you see this at the cinema?
Yes. Aye.
So what did you think of it?
I think I kind of genuinely quite liked it at the time, but I wasn't completely. I always felt that I preferred Tim Burton's '89, but it's definitely a vast improvement over what we had just seen. But looking at it again, I don't think it's a great film really. Has some serious problems, I think. So what was your initial thoughts on the film?
That was good. No, I actually really loved this film. When I saw it at cinema, it kind of blew me away. Like, I mean, there's an hour, a bit, I think, before we actually see Batman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking back on it now, as we watched it, I can see what you're saying. There's still the one-liners in there that we had in like the kind of Batman Forever kind of era. I don't know, just there was something that just felt like the comics to me in this.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It was being so faithful as well. You know what I mean? It had all the kind of like the Commissioner Gordon Batman interaction, which I felt was missing from the Tim Burton films even as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I said this before, but I still kind of, there's a part of me when it first came out I spoke to you about that I kind of would have liked to see them do like a kind of Sin City-esque Batman, you know, like black and white kind of, because I mean Sin City was brilliant like as a comic book adaptation, but I thought they got it really right with this.
Right.
I did. Again, it's not a perfect film. There's definitely a issue looking back with certain elements, especially when you compare it to The Dark Knight.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, infinite amount of times better than Batman Forever and Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. And I mean, it's Christopher Nolan. You know what I mean? It's like good director.
Yeah. So Nolan decides to ground the film in as much realism as possible.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of seems to be the intention. As realistic as you can make a film about a guy that dresses up as a bat.
Indeed, yeah. I think I mentioned this in the first episode, but for me that it's interesting to a point, but it ends up kind of being a bit redundant to me, because I think the kind of mystery of Batman is something that's more appealing, and once you know where he gets his motor, and that it's like, oh, very good. That's where you got it.
I mean, that's maybe a very it's a product of the modern comics,
right?
Because even had for, I don't know if he's still there now, for years they had like this wee guy who was a mute.
Okay.
He'd picked up, I think he was like a kind of henchman guy, but anyway, he fell in with Batman, and Batman had him down in the Batcave, like, and he would repair the Batmobile for him.
All right.
Like, so like again, kind of given kind of real world, like, okay, the Batmobile needs a tune up. You know what I mean? But I think in the comics, it's like very much like, okay, he states, you know, he wears Kevlar, you know,
right.
as a kind of, whereas like, again in the kind of like 70s, 80s, even the early 90s, it wouldn't have really been. You just presumed he just had it was just like a kind of lycra suit on.
Yeah.
You know, it just looks like a kind of skin tight outfit. Whereas I think the modern comics seem to be very much about, if there's a gadget, they'll explain how it works.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like why he uses certain things.
Right.
Like, even like Dark Knight Returns, I mean, he talks about the yellow disc in his chest being like the target or whatever.
Okay.
So I think that's where that comes from. I don't know if that's necessarily a known thing. I mean, obviously it helps with him grounding it in realism.
Yeah.
To me, that I find that stuff quite interesting. It's kind of like it's almost kind of like a James Bondy kind of part. And I mean, those films are hardly grounded in realism. You know what I mean? The James Bond films,
that's true.
the early ones anyway. What, laser watches? What?
Right.
Still don't have them. I'm still waiting to mine. So I don't feel that hurts this film at all.
Yeah. I think it goes along with it. Nolan's kind of want to do something really serious with the subject, and get rid of all the campy stuff and sort of respect the characters in the world of Batman. The fact of his suit and stuff, they was wanting to do like a suit that was actually practical, and that's part of the story as well when he's sort of building the suit up.
Yeah.
But even looking at the 89 one, you know that's going to be difficult to move around in.
Yeah.
Like, just looking at the story, no thinking about the fact it's a film, but still that looks cooler than this. I think I don't like the suits in these films really.
No, I mean I'm kind of when they changed it in The Dark Knight, I wasn't. Again, that was kind of for functionality and stuff like that. But I mean, I prefer the kind of bat symbol, chest symbol that he has in Begins, compared to the original 89, the disc, the shield, and Batman, and even the Dark Knight one, which seems to be more of the kind of stylized logo for the film.
Right.
I don't know. I really like this bat suit. I mean, there's a few times where we're watching this film, you actually laughed out loud because, like, I mean, I think we both agreed it was partially due to maybe what he was saying, the Batman delivery, but it was almost too well lit.
Yeah.
You know, this costume looked a bit kind of ridiculous in your kind of...
Yeah, the sort of, it's too real in a way, too clean. Everything's too precise. It lacks a kind of grit. I mean, well, that's the part of the thing of the film is it's not really a Batman film until we get to the halfway through. Once it gets there, you've got the sort of cop stuff, sort of a rainy city streets. That feels a bit more like what a Batman film might be. But sort of the first bit, I mean, the cinematography is beautiful, but it's not kind of what you think a Batman film.
I guess not. I mean, it definitely feels to me like having like read comics. It feels like they sometimes do flashbacks to his training. Yeah, and it felt like that. It did feel, and I mean, it could have went a different way, I guess. Like with the story, if it wasn't a Batman film, you know, and it would still have worked. But I don't know. I just feel the bat suit in Batman Begins feels like it's. It feels like it's functional, but it feels like it's part of him. You know, when he's in it, it looks like it's. I don't know. It just feels like an extension to him.
Right.
I don't know. It's just the shape, the outline that it gives him, and even he wears the same sort of costume at the beginning of the Dark Knight. It just feels like there's no end to where it just seems to be like that's Batman. As I mean, when he gets the next costume in Dark Knight, it feels a bit more like a costume, I guess, like a suit of armor.
Right.
Whereas in the Batman Begins one looks like it almost looks like the human bat to me.
Right.
Like, you know how they talk about in 89 Batman, it's like a 6-foot bat. It kind of looks like that when you glance at it. It just looks like a guy, a giant bat. Yeah. You know what I mean? It feels very, and the way he moves in it and stuff like that, and the way he crouches up onto like railings and stuff like that, feels very animalistic.
Okay. I don't think it looks scary though. Like
I get the
89 one.
See, I don't think the 89 one looks scary.
Is that
when he comes down at the beginning of 89 Batman? That's creepy, right? But once you actually get a glimpse of him, I don't think it looks ridiculous by any means at all. But I don't feel it looks scary. But it's imposing,
right?
It's imposing. Yeah. But to me, the part of like the Batman, Christian Bale's Batman, it's the whole. It's not just the suit. It's the characteristic, the way he acts.
Yeah.
That's the kind of. It's not frightening necessarily, but as I said to you, when you were laughing when he grabs Flash and he drags him upside down up to the top of the building,
and he's like, the voice
swear to me kind of thing, right? And I kind of get where you're coming from. For me, that still works. I don't know, like someone like grabs you from the street, like hangs you upside down, and he's dressed in a costume. He's like like look at the guys at the beginning of Dark Knight that are in hockey pads and stuff like that. They're a wee bit unhinged, I'd say. You know what I mean? Now we kind of take Batman for granted. Okay, he's a good guy. Man, like if that was happening to you, that's a crazy guy.
Yeah.
What's he do? Why is he? What's he even got? What's he doing? He's got a mask on. He's got like a bat costume on. Like if he's like that, then I mean you're automatic like, I don't know what the fuck is he gonna do. You know what I mean? So I think that's where it comes from. That's where the fear factor that they always spoke about in the comics about him imposing terror on. To me, it's like in these, it's almost like because he's willing to dress up as a bat, and he has all the strength and stuff like that as well. It's kind of like that's the scary. It's like this guy is a wee bit fucking mental.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like who knows what he's gonna do, and that's where the fear comes from.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
No doubt. But I just feel it's just a bit more cartoonish for me. I don't know the way the cowl fits round his face. And I don't like. Is this, you know how definitely a Dark Knight the cape is sort of like velvety.
That's
it's
a
a
cloth.
different tone of black. It doesn't quite look as menacing.
See, I think like had the costume, had the cape been much like in the previous ones, same material more or less as the costume, as the suit. Sorry,
Yeah.
main suit. I think the look would have been off. It would have looked. I feel that would have looked more like see the costumes they wore at the end of Batman Forever. You know, the kind of big.
Right.
I don't know. I feel that would have looked off for this. I mean, I'm not saying like I love the. I mean, it is weird having the cloth thing, but again, it plays into the realism of the
Functionality.
functionality. But I think that I don't know. I just always thought I kind of hated it a bit when they changed it in The Dark Knight.
Right.
I mean, I got used to it, and they've changed it a tiny wee bits for the Dark Knight Rises, which it does look pretty good. But as I say, to me, like that, he looks the most like Batman in that suit. And as I say, like, I think I think like the lighting in Batman Begins is a wee bit brighter on the suit, whereas in the Dark Knight it's a little darker, and it takes that wee bit of definition, the smoothness out of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
The reflective nature of it almost out of it. We're talking about the delivery of the Batman lines. You feel that's. How do you feel about the Christian Bale's Batman?
Yeah, I don't really like him that much.
No.
I mean, yeah, it's definitely a second best version. Well, I mean, Adam West is his own thing.
It's his own thing.
If you
it's like it's not even Batman. It's Adam West's Batman.
Right,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
That's like it's his thing.
it's definitely better than Kilmer and Clooney, but for me, it's just too much. I can't really take the voice seriously.
I mean, don't get me wrong. To me, it was more jarring in Dark Knight. I don't know, because I think they processed the voice more.
Right.
I don't know. I like how he still doesn't say much necessarily. You know how we're talking about how Batman. We were talking about what Keaton was saying about Batman shouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
But I feel his performance is more of an intimidating Batman. Like who could actually. I mean, you know, like Keaton was like a kind of quiet Batman, and you never knew what he was thinking.
Right.
Whereas Bale's Batman is more of a kind of like much like the Tumbler, a tank. Like, you know, get out of his road because he's gonna fuck you up.
Yeah.
And again, that's to me is the modern Batman. Again, that's like, you know, it seems that feels like right for me.
Right.
Again, maybe we're just coming at it from different like eras of, you know, Batman.
Right.
I mean, you said we were talking. You never really read the comics much.
No.
I mean,
I had a few like graphic novels, and there was the volumes of the greatest Batman stories ever told.
Sure.
If you ever get them.
I've read some of them.
Right. So I kind of read them, but I was never an avid comic reader following a storyline.
So I guess so then perhaps, as I think I've said this to you before, but like your Batman was Michael Keaton. You know. You know what I mean? He was like kind of your biggest influence that you would compare anything else to of Batman.
I guess. Well, I mean, I'd probably saw the film before I'd ever really read comics as well.
Yeah, that's what
that
I mean,
probably came after. So
and
that was like your first.
That was probably I'd probably seen the '60s show before that, but you're probably the same, yeah. But maybe. I mean, I did see the '89 Batman fairly early on, but I don't know. I guess I read more comics and more graphic novels, maybe, and even right up to today, you know. So maybe we'll just get different frames of reference of what we compare Batman, what we think of Batman, which is fine. I mean, there's plenty out there for everyone. I mean, again, which it's kind of weird that we both agree with the animated series, you know, like that kind of interpretation. Because I think that gets a fine balance of just right, you know what I mean, in between everything, and takes a lot of influences from all different eras. But for me, this was like, oh yes. This is the Batman that you want. Like even compared to, as much as I enjoy Batman '89, this just feels like my Batman. You know what I mean? This feels like, as I say, it's got all the kind of, it's got your Alfred, it's got the Commissioner Gordon character, who's actually a good Commissioner Gordon character. You know what I mean? He's actually fleshed out, unlike in the original '89 Batman, and it just feels like everyone gets their place. Where, much like with the comics nowadays, like, you know, in line with that.
Right.
So So I think that's where I come from with it.
Okay. Well, I think the main problems I have with the film, I think, kind of structurally, it's just a bit too busy.
Right.
There's not enough space. I think it's too many characters.
Well, I mean, I definitely feel the kind of character Rachel Dawes is kind of doesn't need to be there. She's not even a love interest.
Yeah.
She seems to be solely there to be like I guess a kind of damsel in distress in the middle, like middle to near the end. And I mean, like even before she kisses him at the end and like says she'll wait for him, but like before that, there's no implied. Well, I don't feel there's much implied romanticism between them.
Right.
They're just like old friends.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I mean, Nolan is trying to do something quite ambitious, but he doesn't quite pull it off here. I feel. Dark Knight, yeah, it's much better. But I would have preferred to simplify it down a bit, use the Scarecrow as a more central villain, because that was one thing I felt when I first saw it, that I was excited that it's kind of out of left field, like it wasn't going to be a Joker straight away.
I mean, and that's one thing I did like about this. Like, they didn't go straight headlong into the big rogues gallery.
Yeah.
I mean, they had the Scarecrow there, but he's a kind of, I guess, a more realistic, kind of less of a threat to Batman, you know, personally, villain.
Yeah, but I thought he was sort of criminally underused, and I didn't really care for the Ra's al Ghul League of Shadows thing.
Sure.
I thought their whole plot was just way too intricate to the point of irrelevance in a way. The whole microwave emitter.
That's a like when the guy comes in and tells Rutger Hauer's character about that felt, watching it back now when we watched it the other night, it was like, oh, this feels like a kind of shit, we need a story point,
right?
You know, we need a MacGuffin almost, you know what I mean? It did feel a bit kind of like tacked on, and I mean even the guys like spouting like all this kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, exposition, just like for no reason at all.
Yeah.
When all I had to come in and say was, we've lost this fucking thing. You know, it was just kind of random. But
yeah, and I didn't care for their whole thing, sort of the conspiracy side of the League of Shadows, where this kind of secret group who destroy civilizations whenever they feel take the.
When I get like it. I'm kind of thinking like, I don't know how you're going to feel about Dark Knight Rises, because I feel that they take that there's a part of that in there.
All right. Okay.
Just looking at the trailers and stuff like that, like, and I know that there's mention of Ra's al Ghul, and there's possibly Talia's in it as well.
Right.
And there's been connections with Bane in the League of Shadows in the past in the comics.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's where they're going with this.
Right.
Certainly the trailers seem to suggest the taking down of Gotham.
Right.
And Nolan himself has said about like, the kind of cyclic, you know, bringing it back to Batman Begins in a certain way.
Okay.
So,
well,
might not want to go and see that, mate. But then, as we spoke, I mean, we do feel that he took a big jump with his Batman films when he went to Dark Knight. So maybe it's something that he's improved on the concept somehow. You know what I mean? I get what you're saying though, but about the characters. I mean, looking back at it, to me, this film, like they talk about the escalation at the end of the film, you know, and thus leading into the Joker for that night. But it feels like, well, you've already got somebody in a mask before Batman even gets there. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, yeah, you've got the Ra's al Ghul character, the kind of larger than life secret organisation. So it doesn't feel like that's escalation then.
You're already pretty escalated.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like, I mean, Batman seems to be a reactionary measure to that. I mean, you could argue that Dr. Crane is just a kind of a nut. And he's not going out wearing his mask doing crime. He's just fucking up people in the asylum, whatever. But it feels to me like almost they could have been better served just doing a Batman versus the mob story. Yeah. Much like, I mentioned to you, The Long Halloween.
Right, aye.
It's very much that story. Catwoman's in it a wee bit, which I think they might be taking a bit of a head with the Dark Knight Rises, but she's not like she's not a villain at this point. She's much more of a kind of ally. I think that'd have been a more concise film.
I think so, yeah.
You know, because especially the way it starts with young Bruce Wayne or younger Bruce Wayne getting in and kind of confronting Falcone, and then he takes him out within the first 15 minutes of being Batman in the film. You know what I mean? I mean, in a way, they almost did a better job of the kind of Batman versus the Mob in Dark Knight. You know, that was still there. But I think if it had just been Batman versus the Mob in this film, then the escalation thing would have been far better.
Yeah.
Coming out of Batman Begins.
Yeah. That's a good point.
I mean, still buy it, and I mean, as I say, like, this is the first time I've thought about that. But and I still bought it as escalation. But if you think about it, you already had one of your kind of major rogues gallery villains there, full mask and everything. Maybe not the full costume, but
somebody trying to destroy the city. Already,
and being like this high theatrics. You know what I mean? But as I say, I still enjoy this film, and I mean, up until we watched these two films back to back the other night, I was kind of leaning towards this being my favourite Batman film, and I still feel it gets the kind of Batman tone like right. If you know what I mean. There's definitely story elements that could do with changing about and maybe a bit busy, but I think it's definitely, like, I'd say about 80% there.
Yeah, I mean, I think Nolan himself wasn't he at his peak yet.
I mean, what was this? He's like, how many films did he made before this? He made
Following, Memento.
Had he made Insomnia?
Insomnia, yes, this is his fourth.
So I mean, it's pretty ambitious, like, you know, to go into like a superhero movie. So I feel like it definitely, I mean, you can see it straight away when you watch, as I say, watch Batman Begins and Dark Knight back to back. The evolution there of a filmmaker, working in this kind of someone else's world, I guess, like completely someone else's world, yet his own in a weird way as well that he's kind of come up with. It's pretty ambitious to go into that. I think it's your fourth film, and really only your third studio film. Yeah,
I mean, technically, I would say Nolan's a director who tends to favour narrative. That's kind of his thing. He's not a director whose main focus is like creating an artistic image. And that's one of the things that watching this film, I didn't feel there was anything particularly interesting visually in the film.
Yeah.
I mean, even as he's progressed, he's good at like set pieces now. Thing like the corridor going round in Inception and stuff like that. But he's not really a director, still not a director who will do a really sort of stylised composition.
I mean, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. I don't know, I thought it was just a kick-ass Batman film.
Yeah.
And I mean, which is weird to say with it having an hour worth of its runtime without Batman in it. But I mean, what we get in that like second hour, I mean, we get like the creation of the kind of identity of Batman. We get him coming in like with a tumbler, you know, like the Batmobile tumbler, a big chase scene kind of stuff. We get him battling the cops a la Year One. I mean, I think that's quite iconic. The him coming down the stairwell in the centre with the bats.
Right, aye.
It's quite that's a very feels right out of the comics, you know what I mean? And we get the kind of almost like a coda with him and Gordon on the rooftop, and he's got the bat signal for the first time.
Yeah.
And turns over the Joker card. Don't know. I just feel it's so worthwhile just for the like 80% of the elements it gets right. It's just it's definitely my favourite. Yeah. It was my favourite Batman film. Like when it came out, I was like, this is it. They've totally hit it.
Aye.
As I said, I don't know. I would still love to see the Sin City version of a Batman story, but I don't know if that would necessarily be better than this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the good things I feel about the film, Michael Caine and Alfred Bruce Wayne relationship is done pretty well.
Yeah, he definitely feels like the father figure he should be. Yeah. Yeah.
And then Gordon as well. But it's just if they had more space, like we were talking about how I would say that Batman 89 is a bit more about. I mean, the acting in this is fine, it's great.
Yeah.
But and the performances were given a bit more just room to breathe, like just to go off. It was a bit more centred around just the individual characters rather than a imposing say narrative. So I think again, if this was a bit more simpler to the point, they could have just given those great actors like a bit more to do.
I mean, we spoke about like going from Batman to Batman Returns, you know, and how that after that we never really had just a single villain,
yeah,
and we still haven't
mm,
really, you know what I mean? Even in this, I mean, we've got three villains effectively from the comics. We've got your Carmine Falcone, who was a big villain, albeit like just a mob boss, not like one of your super villains. But then you've got Scarecrow and you've got Ra's al Ghul as well. I mean, it does feel like, do we need all that?
Yeah.
I mean, we could have had Jonathan Crane in it, and it would have been a nice wee nudge, without him being the Scarecrow.
Aye.
So I get, yeah. I mean, there's definitely, and I mean, most of those characters, all of those characters really come into it like in the second hour.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's quite crammed.
Aye.
And I mean, actually, when you think of that way, it's not. They're not that deserved if they're only given an hour to and they're all there, and we get a fair bit of them all. But I mean, I think his original vision was really, when it at first announced this, it was going to be all just the Bruce Wayne journey.
Okay.
And you were going to see Batman for the last like 10 minutes, and it was just going to be him coming Batman.
All right.
Which I mean, I wasn't thrilled about, and I'm glad they didn't do that. But I think maybe he did need. I think he needed to give himself more room. Maybe another film to kind of do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But all in all, as I say, I think it comes together pretty well. And this would, I mean, we spoke about not watching Batman Forever and Batman Robin, but this is definitely one I'll watch over and over.
Right.
Like, again, quite happily. Katie Holmes. We've already said tacked on, but she was alright. Her performance was alright for what the character was.
I get that. It just felt another character that didn't have room to give any
depth to.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, she gets more depth in the Dark Knight. I mean, I guess again, it's a character who's introduced in the second half of the film, really. And Batman Begins, so I can kind of see how they were kind of constructed that way, but they kind of did that to themselves. Yeah, that's it. A much better effort.
Yep. Step in the right direction.
Definitely. And it would lead ultimately to, in my opinion, probably the best comic book adaptation, well, film based on a comic book that we've had. Sorry, you Avengers fans out there, I did enjoy that film, but people will be screaming. But yeah, that's good. But it's fucking Batman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Shall we move on to The Dark Knight?
Let's.
So we have 2008's The Dark Knight. Oh, on you go, Gary. Give us a wee rundown of the plot.
Okay, so Dark Knight continues the story. A new villain's in town, joining forces with the mob, but a bit cracked.
Ooh, aye.
Wants to take Batman down at first, but then realises,
is that right?
This guy's quite fun.
That's it. I guess he kind of wants to like corrupt the city, basically make it implode into itself. Kind of bring down all that's kind of good, like anarchy. I mean, that's seems to be his purpose. Guess that's more or less it. I mean, if you haven't seen the film, fucking hell, you know what I mean? Fuck me, what are you doing? You know what goes down. So yeah, we're introduced to reintroduced to the world of Batman Begins, continued into this. First of all, I was pretty happy when it was announced it was going to be called The Dark Knight.
Okay.
That's always something that like when they did the Sam Raimi films, the Spider-Man film, like they spoke about briefly, you know, I know the new one, Amazing Spider-Man's out, they spoke about briefly calling the sequel like Spectacular Spider-Man.
Alright.
And I don't know, that's always appealed to me, especially in superhero films, like not calling it like Batman 2.
Oh, okay, aye. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know they haven't done that, right? But like, I like the fact that they were like, right, so that was Batman Begins and this is The Dark Knight.
Okay, yeah.
So I quite liked that, first of all. Second of all, I've just remembered a point I was going to make before.
All
we were at a party not long after Batman Begins came out. I think it was at Scott's.
Right, okay, aye.
And we were talking, well, maybe it was a wee bit after, but it was maybe after they announced that they were going to be making the sequel. I can't remember. Anyway, and look, we're talking about what would happen if there was a sequel to Dark Knight, you know, with the Joker card at the end, and
Batman Begins.
Sorry, yeah, Batman Begins. And you kind of mentioned to me, like, well, surely that's it, just going on to the Michael Keaton films now.
That's
it was
what
a prequel.
I thought at first.
No, that brings me, remember I said a bit like this was the first kind of big reboot that kind of made that common knowledge.
Right.
You know, to me, I already knew that it was a reboot because I'd read that, but like it felt weird. But there's a lot of people that thought the same as you, that it was a prequel and not like a reboot.
Yeah. Because I didn't read anything about the film before going to see it. And the name Batman Begins, you kind of...
It does, yeah. It feels like... But I mean, to me, watching it, I felt like I didn't see how these how it could meet up again, you know what I mean? I mean, this film just ups everything that Batman Begins did right, I feel. I know that you weren't particularly charmed on the Nolan films before we watched these, but I think you had a bit of a change of heart.
Slightly
on The Dark Knight anyway. I remember you, when we were watching it, you said...
Yeah, I mean, I'd only seen it a couple of times before. I did feel there's a great film in there, but it was compromised by some bad kind of structural decisions, and I still feel that to a point, but it definitely it kind of clicked with me this time. Even definitely the first 2 hours is kind of pretty much on the nose. Normally when I'm watching these, I take notes about things I would criticise about the film, but I really didn't have anything to say. It was pretty much, I'm not going to say flawless, but I didn't have any qualms with it at all. But I think the last, half an hour, 40 minutes does make mistakes. It could have been done a bit more elegantly, maybe. I mean, and I definitely admire what Nolan's trying to do, and taking like real deep thematic and philosophical ideas and putting them into like an action blockbuster film. It just feels like he was trying to be over ambitious. He had too many balls in the air, maybe.
It does feel that, I mean, it's a film that feels like it has too many endings.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I saw this twice at the cinema. Like, I mean, that doesn't seem like a lot to some people, but I'm not a person that will go and see a film like 5-6 times. I mean, like, the fact that I saw this in regular Odeon, and then I saw it at IMAX, and I was just blown away both times. The first time I watched it, when it got to the kind of, I'm going to say climax, but the climax with the truck, you know, and the big chase scene, and they catch the Joker. Yeah, that feels like that. I mean, you kind of know that it's not the end, but that feels like that's an ending.
It could be, yeah.
You know what I mean? That could totally be them caught him, and that to me that's the best pseudo ending of the film, because when he gets out again from the GCPD, like, I mean, literally that shot of him in the cop car with his head out the window. I mean, it kind of beckons to the line he says later on to Harvey Dent about him being a dog chasing the cars. It literally looks like, but it's just pure anarchy. It's just like, at that point you just don't know what's going to come next. Yeah, and I think that's really like, I remember just feeling kind of edgy at that point, because I think had he killed? No, because Gordon had just come back, hadn't he? Yeah, Gordon's just like revealed that he wasn't dead. Right. But he's been made like commissioner, and you just feel like that's it. Like, all of our like main players that's the last line now. You know what I mean? Like, the kind of basically we've got like Harvey, we've got Batman, and we've got Gordon, who wasn't commissioner but now is. It feels like that's the last line of defence now against this guy, and anything can happen to anyone now. And I mean, we kind of know probably what's going to happen to Harvey Dent. It's obviously like, it's very much, you know, he's in, you know, Two-Face is in this film, but you don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. And then when like Gordon gets this phone call in the middle of the night that Harvey Dent's missing, it leads to like my favourite scene in any Batman film, I think, like, is the interrogation scene. Where, well, first Gordon and the Joker, then Batman and the Joker. I mean, that again feels like, you know, like what Joker's trying to do. He's trying to tip him over the edge, and, you know, he talks about like breaking his one rule. That's the only way he's gonna stop this. But it's like when it's good and kind of funny a wee bit when he's toying with him. You know, he smacks his head to the table, and, you know, he's kind of laughing about it. But that the moment he smacks him onto the table and brings a chair and jams it up against the door, then there's a shot there when you see the cops running out the the two-way mirror room, and it kind of pans back,
Right.
just as Batman's feet walk out of the frame.
Okay.
After having put the chair at the door.
Right.
I don't know. That creeps me out every time. It's so kind of, you just don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely the key scene in the film. That's probably the best scene in any Batman movie, I would say. Like, and it's just the fact that the dialogue between the two characters, it's the best explanation of what the characters are and how they relate to each other.
I mean, it is. It's just, it gives me even just goosebumps thinking about it. I just think it's just epic. When I was watching, I just couldn't believe we were getting it so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, this is what you want to see. It's exactly what you want to see of a Batman Joker.
Yeah.
Confrontation. Like, yeah, okay, like fighting. You don't really want to see Batman and Joker fight because that's not going to go down like how. It's not going to be an epic fight or anything like that because Joker's not typically very physical. The best Batman Joker like confrontations, fight scenes are just them sitting at a table talking or something. You know what I mean? So no, it does. It really does. I mean, I said it, like when you see Heath Ledger when the Joker is into the mob bosses. I mean, that's like really an amazing scene as well.
Yeah.
But the Ledger, you know what I mean? Just the kind of commitment to that character.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just it carries that, bringing that to Christian Bale's Batman and that scene in the interrogation is just like.
And I mean, there's some great scenes in the '89 Batman, but I think the fact, just this is just bigger in scale.
Yeah.
The characters are much more developed.
Yep.
It's just more accomplished. It just feels more real.
The characterization of the Joker, like, I mean, from the prologue, well, they call it prologue, the bank heist at the beginning, which I think's executed amazingly, even more helped by the IMAX cameras. I mean, I can't say enough about the IMAX scenes in this film, but like as I said to you at the time, it's like even just the fact that he's got that grenade, or like you think it's a grenade, it's a gas bomb, whatever, and it's like he's got the little bit of thread from the back of his jacket. I mean, that's how that can come across as working within this real world, quotation marks, but that's like directly lifted out of like the kind of earliest Joker stories, almost. You know what I mean? It feels like a cartoon Joker, but it's like still, it just works, and it's so kind of chilling, you know. And even like the kind of the pencil, you know, make the pencil disappear when he's the mob bosses, or when he dresses up as the nurse when he goes to see Harvey Dent. It's just genius. I mean, that's like exactly Joker. You know, that's just exactly the character. Well, as I know him anyway. You know, I mean, again, kind of basing it in the kind of modern comics and the animated series to an extent.
I take it you would say this was better than Nicholson's. To me, it's kind of apples and oranges. They're both amazing.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Jack Nicholson Joker was Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
As the Joker, you know what I mean?
Right.
Which works. It just works. I mean, it definitely does. This doesn't feel like any part of this character is Heath Ledger. This feels like the Joker, and that's it. You know what I mean? Full stop. Whereas like Jack Nicholson's Joker felt like Jack Nicholson doing the Joker,
right?
Which that's still a great fit. You know what I mean? It's still a great fit. But to me, this none of the character of the Joker in this film feels like that is Heath Ledger coming through. Yeah.
Because it was an interesting casting choice. Because
I was like in the top list of the people that was like, "Fuck off, man! This is gonna be shite." I can't believe this. I mean, there was like they called for Mark Hamill to be cast. I mean, there was calls for somebody else to be cast and use Mark Hamill's voice. I mean, Crispin Glover. You know, which I mean, they had mock-ups of him looking like the Joker.
Right.
I mean, good choices. Some of them, you know what I mean? Some other great actors mentioned, and they brought up Heath Ledger, and I was like, eh.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't hate the guy. I mean, I'd seen a few his films, and he was likeable enough, but I thought, how is he gonna pull this off?
Yeah.
And then when it came out that it was going to be makeup and not like dyed skin, like, again, I don't know how they would have done that in this kind of real world setting. I was again a little bit like, oh well, Batman Begins was alright. But I mean, I couldn't have been more wrong, and I would, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, Nicholson was obviously probably chosen because he could do this. he'd proven he could do a psychotic character before.
And I mean, that's that worst case scenario. You're going to get Jack Nicholson in white paint.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that was essentially it, but he definitely brought it up to the Joker, definitely. But I mean, you look at like something like you look at Jack Nicholson's films, and in most of them, like maybe the later ones, like I've not seen a lot of his other things, but something like As Good as It Gets. Is that him and Helen Hunt?
Yeah.
Like he's a softer Jack Nicholson in those, but like the kind of Jack Nicholson character was always kind of, you're paying for Jack Nicholson, you're getting Jack Nicholson,
right? Yeah,
you know what I mean. Whereas like Heath Ledger, like going from something like the first thing I saw him in was like 10 Things I Hate About You, A Knight's Tale, like even like The Patriot, like he was in, right? It's like none of that would have said this guy's going to make an epic Joker, or even like could pull that performance off. So I think that's like, it's a far bigger feat than the Jack Nicholson Joker, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
To pull that off and get that to work.
Yeah. Although I think Ledger benefits from a more accomplished film built around him.
Oh yeah,
Not to take away from the performance,
no, definitely.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But did you? A lot of people mentioned at the time that they felt that Heath Ledger did overshadow Batman in this fit, or like Christian Bale. I mean, watching it back the other night, I really didn't feel that. I still feel that Batman's at the centre of the film.
Yeah,
but it's the same. It's kind of like with the anarchy, if you will. It feels like there's all this shit going on around about them, and like there's Gordon, Batman, and Harvey Dent to an extent, like running around trying to stop all this shit happening. You know what I mean? That's what it feels like, like chaos almost. So I kind of get what they mean. Like I mean the performance is it's bigger than the Batman. You know what I mean? It's like it's more out there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think he holds it. He holds himself up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, for me, the villains are always slightly more interesting than Batman to an extent. But
how do you feel about the Morgan Freeman character, like Lucius Fox in these films?
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah. It's a kind of nice addition that we didn't have. And I mean, Lucius Fox was there in the comics, but it wasn't something we had in the films before.
Right, aye.
I guess that was a kind of necessity to the whole real world. How does he make these things? But I think that character works pretty well. I mean, it's kind of alluded to in Batman Begins that he kind of knows who he is.
Okay.
But I guess it's like in this one, you know he knows. Given that he basically hands him a new bat suit.
Right.
we had the kind of first ending as we were talking about, and then we have the kind of set piece with the Joker and the fairies.
Right.
That feels like the weakest ending to me. I don't know what it is. I think what we were talking about at the time was he's trying to make the point of that he can cause people to come down to his level, or do like insane or evil things.
Well, yeah,
but he kind of accomplishes that with what he does with Harvey Dent.
That's that's how I feel about it. I mean, obviously the Joker's putting forward the position that there's no such thing as morality. It's all kind of fluid, sort of a utilitarian theory. And Batman's obviously, people are inherently good; they'll make the right decision. And then you've got the Two-Face character who's both. It's just like it's too many. It hits the beats too many times. You've got the boat to represent that. You've got the whole confrontation between Batman and Joker where they play that out, and then you've got Two-Face again with the scene where he goes to kill Gordon. I
mean, I like the fact that like although we have got like the two villains in this film, it's kind of like Batman gets to take out the Joker first before we kind of get the kind of proper Two-Face scenes. So like in that way it kind of works to like, because we've got Harvey through the whole film, so we get an introduction to him, so it kind of does what I was saying with the animated series. We get him introduced and we get to see his downfall, which we didn't get in Batman Forever at all. It was just like he was here, by the way. So I like that, but as I said, just the fairy scene for so many reasons is like, as I said to you, there's a bit where the camera pans over the shoulder of the Joker and he's got like a notepad as he's reading off his directions to the people in the boat, and that just doesn't feel like, that feels like he's talking about having a plan and he doesn't have a plan, and maybe he's just bullshitting Harvey Dent, but like it feels like he shouldn't be reading. I just felt that odd. I remember watching it when I saw it at the cinema and thinking that's odd. That doesn't feel right to me, and it's a stupid bit to have that feeling, but
Yeah.
it just all the rest of the film even when he's doing that video with that Batman impersonator, it's just so raw and like elemental and just like out. It's just this is just coming from his head as it happens. But whereas that point feels like this is a plan. And I know that's kind of what he's obviously had it set up, but it feels too organised.
Yeah, and I mean, before that, the whole thing, is it Kyle Reese?
Coleman Reese, I think is Mr. Reese.
That he says, I'll blow up a hospital unless someone kills Carmen Reese.
Mm-hmm.
So that's exploring the same idea that are the people of Gotham.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's their moral compass? But then it goes and explains the same thing again with the boat.
I mean, I guess it kind of feels like, well, it is him. He didn't succeed with the hospital because they don't shoot him. So he blows up the hospital. So he's trying again, maybe. And it's kind of, like I said to you, it's like when you see Gordon after when he gets back to the GCPD, I think it's when he says he's going to blow up the hospital. It's like, I feel for that guy. You know what I mean? It's really like, holy shit, what's going to happen next? I actually was wondering how is he managing to keep it together. You know, and it's kind of like that's what the Joker's doing. He's like pounding at them.
Yeah. With
a similar concept, obviously, we can see that as watching the film. But it feels like he's trying to just hammer them down. Mm-hmm. They've had this like attacks on the mayor, attacks on Harvey Dent. Like, who's Batman? Try and shoot this guy. Yeah. And then we're going to blow up one of your hospitals. You know what I mean? It feels like he's just terrorising the city. Yeah. It's just a shame it's the same kind of same point he's making every time. And I guess I mean like with the whole, he kills off the police commissioner, kills a judge. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. So I can see that's maybe what Nolan's trying to say. He's basically chipping away at them. Yeah. It's the whole thing I said to you in the Killing Joke in the book. It's like Joker says like what he reckons everyone's just one bad day away from insanity. Right. Aye. And that's what he tries to do to Gordon in that film. So it's kind of the same thing he's trying to do at the city in this, and he eventually manages to do to Harvey Dent. Yeah. See, getting on to the sort of last section of the film, I would like to see at least where the three characters just come together, rather than when you're cutting away to the boats. It seems like, I'm not interested in these characters. I have no relationship with these characters yet. Yeah, it's odd because he seems to. They try to string a lot of intensity and climax and build up from whether these people are going to press this button, and you see them voting, and you see people getting a hold of them. Yeah. And it does feel like kind of, I don't know if I care. You care. I mean, it's obviously, and you get it, and you're kind of, it is kind of, that's the battle. It's like you get the Batman and Joker's points being battled out here, literally. But it does kind of take away from the actual conflict, I guess.
And another scene I don't like, I mean, obviously you need the confrontation between the two of them. Sure. But I don't like the way that's all set up. It feels totally unnecessary.
Like the fight, the actual fight?
No, not the fight, but just how he's got to use the whole sonar thing.
Oh, right, yes,
take out all the hostages and stuff. Like, I mean, they could have done the confrontation a bit simpler.
Sure. Yeah, that was a thing, right? I mean, it feels like a video game at that point. You know what I mean? But the reason he was using the sonar was to find the Joker, right? Which is fair enough. You can see you can see how that would have been as an advantage when dealing with this guy, because they just don't know where he is, right? And it's like they know he's trying to blow these folk up, so he has to find them, right? But once he's into the building, why has he never needed that stuff before? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, he's managed to take out like folk before, so why does he need someone in his ear telling him? And he'll never have it again because it blows up at the. It
doesn't feel like Batman.
Yeah.
I mean, another way.
It feels like Batman, but it feels like a earlier version. It feels like kind of something they would have done in Batman Forever or something. You know what I mean?
I think this may be another thematic use for the sonar. I mean, Lucius Fox is saying how it's like completely unethical to use it. So maybe Nolan's trying to refer to like the whole sort of battle with terrorism in the way like to prevent terrorism, how individual human rights is sometimes we sort of lose some of our human rights in order to try and protect them in the way that kind of happened post 9/11. So he's kind of trying to say something about terrorism and how the Joker uses terrorist methods, but it feels like he's just like throwing another ball up, and which we didn't need. We already had enough stuff going on in the thematic landscape of the film.
Definitely.
So maybe he was trying to. That's why it's in there. But
I guess so. And as I say, it doesn't really bother me up until that point. Like, I get why he's using it. I mean, it works when he's in Tokyo, try to get Lau.
Right. Aye.
I get that because it's to plan, plan his attack, right? Because I mean, he's extraditing this guy effectively. You know what I mean? But when it's the Joker, it seems like he should only need it to find him, and then after that, he would have been there. You know what I mean? In there himself. But I don't know. It does seem odd because he's never, as I say, equal threats probably would come up and he wouldn't need it, and he's never going to have it, as I say, because the machine gets destroyed at the end. So it feels like a shortcut, a cheat sheet for the film. But I mean, these are like literally for me anyway, they're nitpicks. Small, like I'm one of this film's babies, you know. What did you feel to the Rachel Dawes character in this being taken over by Maggie Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, much better.
Much better, aye.
Not necessarily the performance, just giving more to do, I guess.
Yeah.
So,
far more fleshed out, and it felt there was not even, for me personally, not even necessarily from Batman's point of view of losing her, which obviously was a big thing for the character, but like it was more the Harvey Dent loss that I felt, when they were both tied up in those keg rooms.
Yeah.
You felt more for that relationship. But personally, obviously Batman was he thought he was going to like save her, and like Joker pulled the switcheroo, but we get kind of the similar relationship with Batman and Alfred. Still pretty good. Hitting that pretty well. I mean, to me, this is the best Batman film there has been.
I would say, like, in a filmmaking sense, no doubt it's the best, but even though Batman 89 is a weaker film in the sense that it wasn't planned in the same way as this, the script was a bit loose, there's no really a story to it, it's just a kind of bunch of kind of set pieces, but the good things about that I still prefer, if you get me, even though I can see how this is a better film in a way.
Do you think there's any part of that that's like a nostalgia thing, do you think?
Could be.
I totally get where you're coming from. I can still see that film merit, and I think it's still a completely valid version of Batman. That works. Especially the first one. I don't think that's really that dated. You know what I mean? And anyway, it was being projected as a kind of almost period piece anyway. You know, it was given a tone of kind of an earlier time anyway. I'd just like to add one more point about this film.
Okay.
And with respect to the upcoming Dark Knight Rises, I don't like the Batpod. I could be damned without that.
Yeah.
I know folks seem to fucking love it, but I don't really like it that much as a Batmobile replacement. I know it's a necessity in this film in Dark Knight because the Batmobile gets gubbed.
Aye.
And I get that, but it seems like a bit of a...
Yeah, I always feel as well that the Batmobile, any other vehicles after that, is a wee bit like it's getting to the point of where you've got like the 60s show Bat Jam.
Bat Jam. For your bat toast. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no.
Aye.
I mean, I know they don't refer to it necessarily as the Batpod. Well, they do in the film, actually, the Batpod. Alfred asked him if he's going to take the Batpod, and he's like, no, and he's like, the Lamborghini then. And he's like, aye, all day. But it seemed to be using it a wee bit in the next film.
Okay. So. Is it a Bat wing as well or something?
And it's just the Bat.
Oh, okay, the Bat,
so it's called. So, with respect to, and we'll see a soft, sweet good night to the Dark Knight as we pass on from that. We'll leave that be. So we've stopped our conversation about the Dark Knight now. Okay. Put that to bed, as it were. Looking forward to the Dark Knight Rises?
Yes. I'm hoping for... I really want no one to like perfect it here. I think if you go like Prestige, Dark Knight, Inception, that's his best film, his most perfectly realised film. So you can see he's kind of he's getting better.
Definitely.
So I just want him to. I mean, the only problems really I had with Dark Knight is the kind of structure of it, and it could have been tidied up. So I just want him to get it crystal clear. in this one. I was always a fan of Bane.
Yes.
Going back to the Nightfall storyline.
Again, it does feel a wee bit when he announced that it was a bit out of left field, that character, which is good. I mean, we've seen we've seen Catwoman as well, but I mean, we've seen a lot of the like Riddler and stuff. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't think we're needing another one yet. It's good that they're kind of, and Bane is definitely a valid, as you say, like he's quite cartoonish looking back in the comics, but the basis of him being this kind of like intelligent, like strategist who's coming in to take Batman down. You know what I mean? It's kind of it's a good character, and I think that the Nolan and Tom Hardy portrayal will take it the right way. If you know what I mean?
Aye.
I mean, I'm looking forward to this basically based on the Batman Begins and Dark Knight. Just it's if it's as good as Dark Knight, then that'll be a bonus. If it's better, I mean, I don't know. Like that's like I don't know if it can be better for me personally. I know. I mean, going from Batman Begins to Dark Knight, there was a massive leap there in quality and in filmmaking and story and whatever. So logic would dictate it should be, but we've never had a good superhero third film. Most third films don't really,
in general,
hold up that well. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, all the signs are pointing to good, much like they were with the Dark Knight. I mean, I was psyched about that when it was coming up. So I feel the kind of same way about this. I'm hopefully not going to be disappointed. I don't think we'll get disappointed. I mean, there's a chance it might not be as good as the Dark Knight. Right, and I'd still be happy enough with that, because I think that was kind of pinnacle for the superhero film. Any theories for anything you want to throw out for the Dark Knight Rises you think might happen that that hasn't been confirmed yet? Or?
Well, what do you make of the cane thing? Bruce Wayne walking with a cane.
I don't know. Yeah,
that could obviously be the injuries he sustained at the end of the Dark Knight.
See, that's exactly what I was thinking when we were watching the other night there. Yeah. I'm thinking that could, because the fall killed Harvey Dent, and I remember thinking, and still even watched it, it does feel like they're implying he's going to be injured after this fall. The way that it's staged, it's like a kind of
get shot as well, don't they?
That's right. He gets shot as well, and when he's running away, it's kind of like falling and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, that was my thoughts the other night. Not my initial thoughts, but my thoughts the other night. They were this that could have come from that.
Aye. I mean, obviously, Nolan putting that in the trailer. Nolan knows that that's what people are going to think. Are they doing the backbreaking thing?
I mean, my initial thoughts were that it was after a confrontation with Bane, but it seems like it wouldn't be. But I mean, I just don't know. I've had so many theories about this film. One of them was that it was going to. Before we saw the kind of later trailers with Bane coming in, taking over the city almost, that's what it looks like, was that we were going to starting the kind of present day Dark Knight era and have Bane come in then, like closer to the end of the Dark Knight,
right,
and take him out then, and hurt him, and then we were going to go to 8 years later, but I don't think that's going to happen now. I don't know. It could. That was what I was thinking the other night though. It's weird that we're both thinking that, because as soon as he fell and he'd get shot as well, I think that could lead to those injuries. If we're going with the kind of real world thing, and as I say, that fall did kill Harvey Dent, so
that might replace the whole the point that Batman gets into with the whole taking down Arkham Asylum or the escaped inmates.
Yes,
he's in a point of physical degradation.
Sure.
So they could replace that maybe with he's injured. He's not really can't really be a Batman anymore. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem odd that he would just stop.
Yeah.
Being Batman for 8 years. I mean, I can understand if he's now the villain.
Aye.
I mean, he's been kind of chastised as the villain in the comics before and not stopped. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have thought it would have stopped him for. But I guess that there's a lot of kind of implication that what happened to Harvey Dent being killed by the Joker or Batman, whatever they make it out, that this lie that he didn't do it kind of galvanizes the city into this like a peacetime period.
Right.
I mean, like a kind of golden era, and the fact that it's based on lies what brings it down again. If you know what I mean. So maybe they didn't need the Batman. Maybe that's where it comes from. But I mean, I've got this theory. I don't know. I'll throw it out there. I've said to you it so many times, but Liam Neeson's meant to be in this film again. There was reports of seeing him on set. There is at least confirmation of a young Ra's al Ghul be in this film in a flashback, perhaps. I mean, I've never really had this theory put out before about like Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins. When we get Ken Watanabe being Ra's al Ghul as portrayed, it is often thought that Henry Ducard is a fake. It's like he's hiding as Ra's al Ghul, and then he comes out, so he's hidden his identity. Whereas my first thing was, if they're doing this real life Batman world, then how would Ra's al Ghul be immortal like he is in the comics? Right. And the only way I could see that happening is if the title gets passed on from one leader of the League of Shadows to the next. Yeah. And if Ken Watanabe was, so then I would say Ken Watanabe was Ra's al Ghul, the demon's head, right? As is meant to be. So when he got killed, Henry Ducard became Ra's al Ghul. Right. Aye. To me, that's what it is. That's the immortality. I mean, there's been speculation. Apparently, there's been pits seen and behind the scenes pictures with green screen, like tarp over it, as if they're meant to be like Lazarus pits. Right. But to me, that I don't think Nolan would go that way at all. Yeah, probably not. So to me, it's like this is that's how we would make him immortal. Right. Yeah. That's the only way I can see it happening. In this world, if they're going to bring Ra's al Ghul back, and it's not Liam Neeson. Yeah. Have we not got Talia al Ghul? Supposedly, again, but that, I mean, she might be the new Ra's al Ghul. You know what I mean? She might be the new leader of League of Shadows. Yeah. So I don't know. That's always been my theory. As I say, I've never really heard it brought up anywhere else. But that's always kind of as soon as that happened in the film, everyone seemed to kind of just take it for granted that he was just hiding his identity, right? Because he looked more like the kind of traditional comic book Ra's al Ghul. But to me, it was more. No, that guy was him. Right. Okay. Was Ra's al Ghul, but he died. Yeah. And this is him now. But anyway, that's just my humble theory. Don't know whether it will be played on in this film or not, but that's unless it's addressed, that's also what I'm going to think. Right. So it comes out on the 20th of July, I think, worldwide. Is it right? I think so. I think it's a worldwide release. Can't wait. Go and do an IMAX experience full on this time. Over an hour worth of IMAX footage in this film. I think it's the most in any film. Right. Ever. So I think it's in good hands. I don't think I'm going to be disappointed. And I hope you're going to get the kind of finality and culmination. Yeah. I still want to come out and say it was, yes. I still want to like it. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us in this kind of short trip down through the Batman films. I think we'd have liked to cover the 66 movie, but we've mentioned it back and forth. I think it's got its own merits as well. If you're listening to this, I'm sure you like Batman. I hope we've not done him a disservice. Or you just like us. Well, yeah. Obviously that's what it'll be, Gary. Anything else to add, Gary? I think I'm done. Yep, I'm good as well. Thanks for listening. Yeah, see you next time. Keep listening to the regular podcast. We'll hopefully do some more specials in the future. You could. These are the first of many, hopefully, or first of a few. Bye, guys.
It was a nightmare.